I don't know about you, but I believe Charlie Kirk authored the letter to Netanyahu as much as I believe that Sasquatch lives behind my house. And I'm not saying something nefarious happened, but I am saying that it reads a lot more like a PR crisis comm communication or proposal that maybe a crisis comm strategist sends to a client than it does Charlie Kirk reaching out to someone that he allegedly has a good connection with and is friendly with, Bibi Netanyahu. And we're going to break that down today using over 15 years of experience that I have in branding, marketing, and PR. I've been on the other side, and I'm telling you, this letter looks like something I would put together for a client in a proposal. And it's extra odd that what we're seeing right now is influencers meeting with Netanyahu to basically roll out what was in this letter. Even if you can get me over the hump that potentially Charlie had written this or signed off on it, obviously his feelings had changed. And we also hear that from Candace Owens. Let's actually hear from Candace Owens what she is saying happened in just days before Charlie's death before we go any further.
Then I am lying if this is not true. About 48 hours before Charlie Kirk died, Charlie informed people at Turning Point, as well as Jewish donors and a rabbi, that he had no choice but to abandon the pro-Israel cause outright. Okay, Charlie was done. He said it explicitly that he refused to be bullied anymore by the Jewish donors. Can you guys answer? Did he express that? Did he also express that he wanted to bring me, Candace Owens, back because he was standing up for himself? And then did he, just 48 hours later, conveniently catch a bullet to the throat before our onstage reunion could happen?
Now, I will say, I do believe what Candace is saying in regards to her relationship with Charlie Kirk. There are videos where he says in the video, at speeches, he absolutely refuses to cut Candace Owens out. That even if he was to disagree with someone, that's not enough to cut them out of his life. And so I do actually believe what Candace is saying here. Now, in part one, we're going to dive into the letter and why I believe a crisis comm person actually wrote this and not Charlie Kirk. And then in part two, we're going to look at, well, the crisis comms strategist that has just recently gone under a rebrand. And yes, that person is Andrew Kolvet, who has been showing up as Charlie Kirk's best friend, longtime family friend. We're going to look at him and who he actually was prior to the rebrand right after Charlie had passed away. Where I want to start here is looking at the letter. One thing I'll say right off the bat about this being from the desk of Charlie Kirk is I have e-signatures saved on my computer that staff can sign documents for me with. Just because his signature is at the bottom does not mean that he necessarily wrote it. Now, again, I'm not saying that something nefarious happened. I'm not saying that he wasn't aware this was being written. I am saying that I do not believe he authored this letter. This is allegedly a message from Charlie Kirk to Netanyahu declaring his love for Israel. And well, in all of the audios and videos I can find from 2025 and even in past years from Charlie Kirk, he always prefaces everything with, I love Israel. I want them to win. And then he goes into his concerns. So I'm not saying that I have proof. I don't have the connections Candace Owens does, that I have proof that he was completely writing Israel off. What I am going to show you today is that not everything here actually passes the vibe check or even passes the common sense check. Now, for those that have followed me for my Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni coverage, something you're going to remember is that I had actually called that Jed Wallace and Melissa Nathan were behind multiple smear campaign websites. And the reason I was able to call that is because there's a fingerprint in the format, how it was orchestrated, the copywriting on the smear campaign websites that we were seeing in different lawsuits. And I had said, I believe that Jed and Melissa are behind these. Well, turns out that it is coming out. They are being investigated as having been behind these smear campaign websites and these different lawsuits. But it was just a fingerprint. It's just from working in this industry for over 15 years where you start to see what is maybe CEO speak, which is what we see in Charlie's letter, his internal memo that Candace Owens did share on her channel as well. what's more polished, more CEO speak, what is more of his informal public speaking. Because Charlie, in many ways, I feel that that's what allowed him, especially to connect with youth, was more of a informal approach to communication with them. And then this, which is, again, what I believe to be true, is a crisis comms proposal being sent to a client. And they just simply don't add up. You can see fingerprints in how someone speaks. And this is just not how Charlie Kirk spoke. There are Charlie isms within it, but overall, it reads like a deck proposal. Again, like a PR strategist pitching a campaign to a head of state. Now, one of the things that I noticed on this document as well, especially in light of what is coming out with Israel launching a influencer campaign specifically on X and TikTok, which the sale of TikTok is a big concern I have overall. I don't think the concern of the American government was China having access to your information. I think they wanted to control the countries that would have access to your information. And it looks like Netanyahu is very excited about this sale going through. However, if we just look here, we find the word social media, it actually comes up 36 times in this alleged letter from Charlie Kirk to Netanyahu. It's basically, again, a crisis comms proposal on how to leverage social media to take back control of the narrative. And that's essentially what PR is, right? It's narrative control. And I do think there's a red flag here as well, with this letter having been released at about the same time we're getting those videos of Netanyahu meeting with influencers. And what this does is really create the halo effect. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in part 2 of this in regards to Andrew Kolvet and his rebrand as Charlie Kirk's best friend. With that halo effect, this letter coming out at almost the exact same time as those videos is saying, hey, if you question Israel, if you question this influencer campaign, if you question him going to TikTok and X, well, you're questioning Charlie Kirk. And don't you love Charlie Kirk? Aren't you a fan of Charlie Kirk? And so when you get this halo effect in marketing and PR, the idea is that person, whether it's Andrew Kolvet or whether it's Netanyahu through this letter, they become essentially insulated from criticism, because then you are directly criticizing Charlie Kirk. And Charlie Kirk was a beloved individual. And so you don't want to question Charlie Kirk, right? So that's another red flag for the releasing of this letter at the time that it was released. I don't think it's a coincidence, and I don't think it's necessarily just because Candace Owens called Netanyahu out to release this. I genuinely believe it's more of that halo effect in branding, marketing, and PR being employed here, because we're seeing it even in his wife being pushed out into interviews. I believe she's under a lot of pressure. We're not going to get much into her today, but her being pushed out to the front, being paraded around on podcasts and interviews and on stage, it's all the halo effect. And we're going to get into that a little bit more as we go. So that was a huge red flag for me. I don't think this was released because Candace Owens triple dog dared him. I think it was a planned release, a planned rollout to insulate Netanyahu from criticism of using social media. And with that halo effect as well, you're almost getting that, like, you're rubbing the magic sauce of that individual off on you, that magic stardust, right? Because, well, again, Charlie Kirk wanted it, but I don't believe he actually wrote this. So we see social media appear 36 times within this. So it was definitely a PR proposal in regards to how to take back the narrative through social media, which is exactly what we're seeing now. Let's actually look at Netanyahu himself talking about how they're mobilizing TikTok and X, literally admitting they're pulling influencers into the propaganda machine. So this letter's language lines up perfectly with what Netanyahu is bragging about now. Let's pull up that video.
Something I would like to raise, which was actually my first published paper, was how you and the Likud party are cut from the same ideological cloth as Trump and the GOP in America. And so specifically with Charlie Kirk's assassination, who was a big mentor of mine, who's my first mentor in the space, evangelicals, from all my research, evangelicals are the reason that Israel has been supported in public sphere outside of just Jews. So with Charlie's assassination and with the kind of trajectory that we see with like Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson, I guess I'm curious about what's another.
Just as a heads up, make sure to like, subscribe, hit get notifications. I'm going to have a video coming out as well in regards to exactly what she talks about here. Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, Candace Owens, those three have smear campaigns being launched against them, and Megyn Kelly is coming under direct fire at this time. So make sure you do like, subscribe, and hit get notifications, because I'm going to show you all inside a true smear campaign. They've been doing one against Candace Owens for quite some time. They're redirecting a lot of that energy over to Megyn Kelly right now. So make sure to hang around.
Other game plan, if we lose evangelical support for the state of Israel, what's our backup plan to be strong, like outside of the diaspora?
Christian influencers. Okay. You said, you talked about the woke right, and you said, I call it the woke Reich. That's a brilliant. The woke right, because these people, they're not any different from the woke left. I mean, they're insane. They're movies. But they're actually meeting on some of the things. And what we have to do is we have to secure that part of the base of our support in the United States. That is being challenged systematically. A lot of this is done with money. Money of NGOs, vast. Money of governments, vaster. Okay? We have to fight back. How do we fight back? Our influencers. I think you should also talk to them if you have a chance. To that community, they're very important. And secondly, we're going to have to use the tools of battle. The weapons change over time. You can't fight today with swords. That doesn't work very well.
Something I want to interject here is this is the whole point of this channel, is using my 15 years of experience in branding, marketing, and PR to bring out the issues that we have in the psychological warfare that goes down on social media. There was a push, I'd say 2024, 2025, of legacy media bad. And don't get me wrong, I do think legacy media is corrupt. However, those that are speaking out on social media are being hit with suppression, demonetization, their channels are being taken down. And that's why myself make sure as a member of the channel to keep an eye open for Substack. I'm moving a lot of my community off of YouTube into Substack, because the reality is I got hit after covering a certain lawsuit. Actually, I'm not going to say the name because it'll probably get hit again. A certain lawsuit within the Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni, It Ends With Us lawsuits that got my channel hit for suspicious activity, while the suspicious activity was just uploading that video. Now there's this cleaning up that YouTube is having to do on my channel to protect you, to protect people from disinformation, apparently. And I'm having videos removed. I'm having videos demonetized. My income has been cut in half. And as someone that cut back on my client work to bring content to people, to show you behind the headlines, to show you behind the media manipulation, to show you behind the narrative control, it's not something I can afford, because I can't be here if I don't have, lights in the internet. So I am moving a lot of my community off of YouTube. But this is the reality of what's going on. And it's psychological warfare. It's using branding, marketing, PR psychology to get past your conscious mind and start impacting you on the subconscious level. This has been going on. And I think we're in an era where we have to realize that it's just not legacy media versus social media and content creators or influencers or independent journalists. The war, more or less, and what he is saying here, has been moved to social media platforms, which is kind of scary.
Okay. And you can't fight with cavalry. That doesn't work very well. And you have these new things, like drones, things like that. I won't get into that. But we have to fight with the weapons that apply to the battlefields in which we're engaged. And the most important ones are the social media. And the most important purchase that is going on right now is TikTok. TikTok, number one. And I hope it goes through, because it can be consequential.
I'm telling you right now, don't look forward to the TikTok sale. You've been lied to. I had a video about this that was struck, so it's not available anymore. But those that were on the live saw me talking about this a couple of weeks ago, where I said, don't be excited about what's going on with TikTok. this wasn't about China. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. It had nothing to do with China. It had everything to do with securing the connections that benefited Trump and the US. Now, I also don't believe this is a right versus left issue. All politicians are playing into the big money backers, the actual puppet masters. They're all just puppets. So I would love to see, which I know is a big ask, us move past this right versus left rhetoric, because at the end of the day, they're not the puppet master. They're just putting the moves in place.
And the other one, what's the other one that's most important? X. That's very good. And, so we have to talk to Elon. He's not an enemy. He's a friend. We should talk to him.
I'm interested to see how Elon addresses this.
Now, if we can get those two things, we get a lot. And I could go on other things, but that's not the point right now. We have to fight the fight, okay? To give direction to the Jewish people and give direction to our non-Jewish friends or those who could be our Jewish our friends. Are we going to succeed with everyone? No. Will there be a strong counterpoint? Yes.
There you go. And so again, I find it very interesting that we're getting a letter at the same time these are making the rounds. You're getting that halo effect, which is essentially saying, well, these were Charlie Kirk's words. Charlie Kirk was supporting this. He wanted Netanyahu to take the fight to social media. And don't you love Charlie Kirk? So what you're going to go against Charlie Kirk's last dying wishes? How dare you? I'm telling you, that is the psychology of this. Flipping back to this letter, I want to look at a couple red flags for me. And we already looked at one of the main ones. This is social media showing up 36 times. It was, in my opinion, a proposal sent to a client, sent to a head of state on how to essentially reputation launder that head of state within the US. However, there's a couple words here that also stand out that are PR comms strategist words. And I just cannot see Charlie Kirk having used these words, especially after seeing his letter that he wrote with Turning Point that Candace Owens had. And we'll look at that after we look at this, just to see a little bit of the difference, even when he's writing more formally. Here are some unsolicited recommendations my team and I suggest if you're open-minded to a communications reset. We see communications reset. We see rapid response media team. Both of those words for me are very much, again, what a professional in PR, a professional in crisis comms would say. Another one that we see here is communication strategy. He says, you lead and people like me will follow and provide supplemental support. If you're open to revamping your communication strategy, my team and I are happy to assist. I do believe it's intentional saying my team and I, which would put, well, who is Charlie Kirk's team in regards to communication strategy? Andrew Kolvet. That is who Andrew is. He is not the best friend. That is a rebrand, my opinion, because I cannot find one piece, one shred of evidence that the words ever came out of Charlie Kirk's mouth that Andrew Kolvet was his best friend. The only time I can find this is since Charlie's death. Charlie, what I can find, only ever referred to him as a producer, not my best friend, Andrew. So here we're seeing my team and I, so you're setting Andrew up to essentially take over that. Another interesting piece for me is this here, Israel is losing the information war and needs a communications intervention. So on one hand, they want us to believe that Charlie Kirk was close to Netanyahu, but this is how he speaks. Information war, communication strategy, communication intervention. It just doesn't sit right with me. Now, we also have him go deeper into, have you considered inviting some of the released hostages to go on speaking tours in the US? This could be very effective messaging. Effective messaging is a PR speak as well. And if you're open to revamping your communication strategy, we talked about that previously. Again, that is a PR playbook talk. That is an operations voice message discipline, emotional leverage, tour logistics. That's a team. I still don't believe that Charlie Kirk wrote those words, especially when we flip over into Candace Owens' letter. Let's have a look at that next. This is the internal memo that Candace Owens had leaked. And I know a lot of people are giving her slack saying she's just lying, she's making things up. She very clearly has connections within Turning Point. She's been involved with the company. Someone gave her this. So I actually am more inclined to believe that she knows things and Turning Point's the one being dishonest. So we'll scroll down here to where he says that Justin's role is assembling a small team to assist in this effort, which is focused on Turning Point USA, 1, becoming more efficient, 2, becoming more cost effective, 3, unifying organizational success around company-wide metrics and goals, and 4, reshaping company culture. I expect many positive changes to come from the forthcoming initiative in Justin's expanded role. So even when he's speaking more polished and professional, he's still not talking about communication strategy. He's still not talking about information warfare and communications intervention. This is very just plain as day CEO talk, being more efficient, being more cost effective, organizational success. Yay, let's all work together, and reshaping company culture. I'd also like to know, this was just sent on September 2nd, what company culture needed to be reshaped? What did he know? What was he investigating? This small team was just put together on September 2nd. He died on September 10th. So what did they maybe not want him to find? What did they maybe not want Justin to find? And what was exactly that company culture that needed to be reshaped? Now, I do believe there's contradictions between what's said in this letter and what we've seen publicly. I'm going to pull up some clips so we can hear from Charlie Kirk himself. What better way? We don't have to go through Andrew Kolvet. We can hear from Charlie Kirk himself about concerns he had. I'm also going to pull up, and I've talked about these multiple times, I'm going to pull up a couple tweets from people in his inner circle that talked about how apparently everyone had concerns about him. Well, if you had concerns about him for some time, how does it make sense that just in, what was it, May 2025, I think he said it was around Easter, he's writing that letter, a love letter essentially, as it's being billed, to Netanyahu. If y'all had issues with him for a long time, I don't buy it. So let's just have a look at a couple clips of what he had to say in the lead up to his passing. Now, I'm going to back this up to a part I've never shown before because I didn't realize that Charlie mutters under his breath while Megyn Kelly is speaking. So we'll just watch this piece first.
Don't want to alienate people who are openly your friends by going nuts in your crackdowns on mild
Nuts is the
pushback
right
on
word.
anything related to it.
I never caught that before. So he says nuts is the right word and mutters under his breath, which I had never caught.
Israel. Now you take it.
I'm so glad you brought this up, and I would second that, Megyn. I think I have a bulletproof resume showing my defense of Israel, both on campus, on social media, to great, let's just say mockery and scorn at times.
Coming after you after Turning Point for, among other things, that you had Dave Smith there. Dave Smith is allowed to criticize Israel. You had both sides. The Israeli side was overrepresented.
Though. No, you're not allowed to. It's even worse than that. Again, I just want to repeat for the 5th time. I love Israel. I want Israel to win. But my moral character is now being put into question, Megyn. Not my decisions. Not like, hey, are you doing this? Is it smart or is it dumb? But no, I am a bad person if I do this. And I could go, you saw it, Megyn. It was trending on Twitter, thousands of tweets and text messages. And if I were to be charitable and generous, I will say, the people that are attacking me are in a hyper-paranoid state because they're at war, and war tends to make things black and white.
So the people attacking him are in a hyper-paranoid state. He says there's thousands of tweets, text messages of people attacking him, and we've played those clips. We've looked at those. We're going to look at those tweets again today because I think they're hyper-relevant. I'm tired of this halo effect that they're trying to feed us. Just be honest, Turning Point. Just be honest, because this man here is questioning things. And now you're trying to twist his own words when he can't speak for himself. And again, this is why studying his own words in recent years, particularly the backlash he received from those closest to him, is another reason why the only thing I can see in reading that letter is a crisis comms strategist putting together a proposal for a client. I do not believe Charlie Kirk wrote that letter. And that is from over 15 years of working in the industry, writing that shit for people myself. But let's look at some more. This is Megyn Kelly and Charlie Kirk speaking. I'm telling you right now, there is a smear campaign being launched against Megyn Kelly. Make sure to like, subscribe, hit get notifications because I'm going to talk about that. And make sure to keep your eyes open for my Substack, because to say everything I want to say, we've got to get off this platform. All right, here we go.
Do you think there's any intel community involvement in this?
I wouldn't be surprised one bit. I am convinced, based on my own sources and my own reporting on this story, he wasn't one of ours.
So he was an American, which leads...
So they're speaking about Epstein here. Both of them had concerns. And that clip I just played from Megyn Kelly's show, they expressed their concerns there as well.
Basically 3 options: MI6, Saudi, or Mossad.
Yep.
Which one would you choose?
I guess Mossad, given his connection to Ghislaine Maxwell.
So what does that mean?
Well, I mean, it's possible that that's the reason everything's getting buried, that there is some treasure trove and it's getting buried because...
How many people here believe that? Raise your hand. Okay, I'd say about half the hands think that it's being buried because of an Israeli thing.
Half the hands. Well, what happens, just from a PR perspective, because again, that is my background, what happens if 50% of the people at a Turning Point event believe that Israel is burying information in regards to Epstein? What happens if Megyn and Charlie keep talking about this? Does it turn to 75% by the end of 2025? 80%? What's that number look like in 2026? Because let me tell you something. People trust Charlie. It's not Turning Point itself, although they can halo effect all they want right now, and it might work temporarily. But people trust Charlie. How many billions of dollars are on the line if you start getting that 50% ticker moving closer and closer to 100%? I'm not saying I know who is directly behind Charlie dying and being assassinated, but what I am saying is it wasn't a 22-year-old guy with the gun that they're saying he used. I've said that from day one, that it was all media manipulation. I showed you the videos from ABC News that manipulate it so it looks like Tyler Robinson is agreeing that it's a politically charged crime. I've shown those videos on this channel. From day one, I've said you're being manipulated.
It could be. I really don't know.
I have no evidence to suggest that.
No, me neither. I did think it was very odd how, look, half of you raised your hands because you've heard that theory. You've heard it debated. You have questions. But the one time Pam Bondi was asked a question about this at the cabinet meeting on Monday, she was like, and as for whether he was an agent, that I don't know. I haven't looked into that. I'll get back to you. You haven't looked into it? What do you mean? So that was kind of a fishy answer.
And Megyn, remember Alexander Acosta in 2007, he said he was told to treat Epstein carefully because he was an intel asset. That was one of Trump's cabinet secretaries who was literally a U.S. attorney 3 hours from here in Florida. He said that himself.
Well, and let me tell you the consequences of that. His subpoena, his search warrant on Jeffrey Epstein's residence was very narrow. It was not the kind of like, let's get everything. Let's see everything inside this guy's, dressers and so on. It was very, very narrowly tailored. And to this day, that's what the FBI is stuck with.
Let's look at another video of Charlie Kirk sharing his thoughts. This one is from last year. Because remember, they want us to believe that he never spoke out about Israel.
When I first heard this story, I still have the same gut instinct that I did initially. I find this very hard to believe. I've been to that Gaza border. You cannot go 10 feet without running into a 19-year-old with an AR-15 or an automatic machine gun that is an IDF soldier, right? The whole country is surveilled. And so let me just kind of go through this. We don't talk about Israeli politics very often, and most Americans don't know this. The last 9 months, Israel was on the brink of civil war. It's not an exaggeration. This judicial stuff, there were hundreds of thousands of Israelis taking to the streets because Bibi Netanyahu was basically redefining the Israeli constitution. That's not an exaggeration, right? He said the judicial branch has too much power. There were protests planned this week against Netanyahu, where they anticipated tens of thousands of people to take to the streets. That's all gone, Patrick. Netanyahu now has an emergency government and a mandate to lead. I'm not willing to go so far that saying that Netanyahu knew or there was intelligence here, but I think some questions need to be asked. Was there a stand down order? Was there a stand down order? 6 hours? I don't believe it. Israel's the size of New Jersey. When I took a helicopter ride from Jerusalem to the Gaza border, it's 45 minutes. Wow. 6 hours. They're live streaming the killing of Jews. Did somebody in the government say stand down? That is a legitimate non-conspiracy question.
And that is from last year. But let's look at yet another example from Charlie's own words. Andrew Kolvet would like you to believe that independent journalists and individuals like myself are twisting Charlie's words. I don't know. I would take it as us listening to what he said. But let's look at another example.
Uses the Bible to justify aid to Israel, doesn't even know the verse. Do you guys think that's like not the best way to approach this? Raise your hand. Okay.
I think Ted Cruz used Genesis 12:3. I think a lot of people see that as off-putting when you look at the New Testament.
Why?
Because I think a lot of people, they look especially at the writings of Paul, where he talks about how the new flesh is not the same as the people in the old covenant. The new flesh is everybody, is everyone's included.
Talking about Romans 9.
Yes.
Through 11.
6, yeah.
Are you Catholic?
Converted to Catholic from
Yeah, I can
Judaism.
tell.
This is my next.
Oh, from Judaism?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
So
wow.
so you're ethnically Jewish,
Ethnically Jewish, yes.
and you have concerns about
Do you see Andrew's? Watch Andrew.
ethnically Jewish,
Ethnically Jewish, yes.
and you have concerns about AIPAC.
Yes, I do.
I'm told that.
Oh, we have
Converted to Catholic from
Yeah, I can
Judaism.
tell.
This
Yeah.
is my next.
Oh, from Judaism?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
So
wow.
so you're ethnically Jewish,
Ethnically Jewish, yes.
and you have concerns about AIPAC.
Yes, I do.
I'm told that by some people
Mhm.
that if
Look at
I
his eyes.
criticize AIPAC, I'm anti-Semitic.
I think it's ridiculous. Yeah.
Look at
I
that
feel like
again.
it's right.
Anyone that understands body language, look at that again. So first, when Charlie's talking about converting, that's Andrew Kolvet. Don't worry, we'll get to him. He goes, okay. And then watch his face go from smiling.
AIPAC.
Yes, I do.
I'm told that by some people
Watch this.
that if I criticize AIPAC, I'm
Eyes
anti-Semitic.
go
I
down.
think it's ridiculous.
Licks
Yeah.
his lips.
I feel like it's great to have a concern for your
purses
country.
his lips
Do
together.
you think that
You will not convince me that this man was impressed with what Charlie was saying here. Don't call me a fool.
Is not the same as the people in the old covenant. The new flesh is everybody, is everyone's
Talking
included.
about Romans 9.
Yes.
Through
9,
11.
6, yeah.
are you Catholic?
Converted to Catholic from
Yeah, I can
Judaism.
tell.
This
Yeah.
is my next.
Oh, from Judaism?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
So
wow.
so you're
There.
you're ethnically Jewish,
Ethnically Jewish, yes.
and you have concerns about AIPAC.
Yes, I do.
I'm told that by some people
Here we go.
that if I criticize AIPAC, I'm
Look
anti-Semitic.
at that.
I think it's ridiculous. Yeah. I feel like it's great to have a concern for your country.
Do you think that that AIPAC represents, again, I'm not saying I believe this, but I think this is what you're saying, that it represents a kind of cutting in line of
Look at
prioritization
Andrew.
away from the American people?
Yes.
Would you guys say that's a fair summary?
100%.
Meaning that, like, okay, we vote, we're citizens, but a separate
Look at the eyebrows. He was smiling and joking until this conversation came up. So Andrew is who's being rebranded as Charlie's best friend. He was the crisis comms guy, you know, that might write, for example, a proposal to head of state. If that doesn't tell you everything, I don't know what does.
group gets higher priority because of whatever reasons. You look like
Look
you
at
want
the
to
look, the furrowing of the
chime in.
brows. And look at Charlie. He's glowing. He loves debate. He loves asking tough questions. Andrew's not impressed here.
The entirety of the idea of a PAC is to represent a group, but the fact that we're allowing a group that doesn't even represent American interests to influence the people who are supposed to be representing us, I have a huge problem with. And that's why I've said this before, and a lot of people don't like when I say it. I actually think there's probably like 20 representatives between Senate and House who I think are actually fully doing the work of the American people and don't have the interests of some group pulling their sway.
There you go. So not only do we hear Charlie Kirk, we also get to see his BFF, guys, his best friend forever, Andrew Kolvet, who is very clearly not impressed. Anyone that knows anything about psychology, anyone that knows anything about tells and body language, the brows get more furrowed as he goes, as Charlie gets more lit up asking the questions. Andrew looks about as impressed as Ben Shapiro looked when Charlie Kirk was challenging Ben Shapiro about media. Because you can't tell me that Charlie wasn't questioning Ben Shapiro and asking the tough questions. Ben looked just as impressed as Andrew looks here. So when Turning Point tells you that people are misrepresenting what Charlie said, I think we're representing exactly what Charlie said. I think Turning Point is the one that is twisting it to fit a certain narrative. So if you compare, for me, the timing between what Charlie Kirk had been saying publicly, doubts, concerns, even suggestions of failures or stand downs, talking about converting to Catholic, being Catholic, it doesn't match this full-throated, full-chested PR pitch that's supposed to be this letter. To me, the letter screams this was written for Netanyahu by a comms strategist. Well, who's the comms strategist for Charlie Kirk? This person sitting right next to him right here with a furrowed brow when Charlie Kirk is asking questions. That's the PR strategist for Turning Point, Andrew. Don't let the psychological warfare. I don't doubt they were friendly. Charlie comes across as a guy to me, honestly, that if you spend enough time around him, he sees you as a friend. And I imagine Charlie's incredibly loyal to his friends. But there's a difference between that and being someone's best friend. That deserves every single headline, that you are someone's best friend. There's a big difference there. Now, I also have proof of the Turning Point fracture that was happening, not just from X, but I also have proof from a recent interview that Andrew Kolvet did. Let's have a look here. Laura Loomer over on X, she let her voice be heard, her displeasure over Charlie Kirk. She says, I don't ever want to hear Charlie Kirk claim he is pro-Trump ever again. After this weekend, I'd say he has revealed himself as a political opportunist, and I have had a front row seat to witness the mental gymnastics these past 10 years. So it wasn't just the last few weeks. This was posted at the end of August. So apparently that's how he's been for a long time. Lately, Charlie has decided to behave like a charlatan, claiming to be pro-Trump one day while he stabs Trump in the back the next. TPUSA was only able to thrive thanks to the generosity of President Trump. On the one-year anniversary of the assassination attempt on Trump's life, Charlie hosted comic Dave Smith at TPUSA's SAS conference, where Dave Smith was able to speak to a bunch of conservative youth at an organization that claims to be pro-Trump. 3 weeks ago, Dave Smith called for President Trump to be impeached and removed from office over his decision to blow up Iran's nuclear facilities. Charlie played both sides of the Iran issue on his show as well. We all saw, because he wants to play both sides of the aisle. The honorable thing to do is to have a position and actually defend it to the death instead of flip-flopping. Interesting, right? Interesting how they're going back to the position that they feel he wasn't flip-flopping on, his original flip-flopping in his death. Interesting. Smith said all of MAGA should turn on Trump and abandon him. He said this 3 weeks ago. See the clip below. TPS USA is definitely not pro-Trump. If they were, they certainly aren't anymore. All of the incredible pro-Trump voices out there who support the president, Charlie decided to host Dave Smith. It really is shameful. And I'm honestly just disgusted by the nonstop flip-flopping on the right. We have more. Let's look at another one. This is from Han Shawnity. Of course, Charlie continues to amplify Tucker Carlson. I don't know if anyone has done more harm and helped the mainstream rabid Israel hate and anti-Semitism than Charlie Kirk. So this is the end of August. Having notorious grifters Jack Pobes, having notorious grifters Jack and Benny there is just the cherry on top. TPUSA is a joke. Stop funding it. And we heard from Charlie Kirk himself that he was seeing thousands of tweets and all these text messages of people attacking him for his views and for asking critical questions. He said with Megyn Kelly that, no, you're not allowed to ask any question. He corrected her. She said, we should be able to ask questions. He says, no, you're not allowed to. Yet there's more, which I find very interesting. And we're going to pull over Andrew Kolvet to help us with this one. Now, Andrew really shows his true colors as a PR strategist here. Let me tell you that. And, you know, he's a little bit more casual in his clothes, which is good. His best friend, right? So you want to go with the clothing, the look of the best friend as well. He's having like a nice, just conversational chat with one of the Turning Point influencers. But watch how he avoids this question. It's quite masterful. And also keep in mind, this is something we'll be talking about in part 2. Watch how, one, he avoids the question. And you might say, well, Ashley, if they didn't want him to ask, they didn't want those questions involved, why wouldn't they just have said, don't ask these questions or cut it out? Well, because now you get the clickbait or those sound bites that he's answered these hard questions. He's answered these hard questions, but he actually didn't. It's PR talk. It's a whole lot of nothing. But you get a controlled setting on friendly fire ground with someone that's involved in Turning Point, one of the influencers at Turning Point, this Alex Clark, I believe. I don't know her personally, but you get this friendly fire. And likely, I'm going to assume Turning Point, aka Andrew Kolvet, had final say on what was actually shown. So let's just play here.
Policy.
One of our last conversations, he brought that up. He said, Alex, I'm really worried. Like, this is really serious, isn't it? The infighting and the splitting of the movement. This.
So she's admitting that Charlie Kirk had concerns about the infighting within the movement. This is all intentional. Watch the answer.
Is really a problem. And I said, yeah, but then I don't know, one of us got pulled away or whatever. We literally only said that. So I didn't get to hear more of his thoughts on that. But what was he telling you behind the scenes?
It's interesting because there's been a lot of people who don't know what they're talking about.
What was he telling you behind the scenes? Well, look at what it's listed as. Who Charlie Kirk really was. That's the episode. His best friend and producer, Andrew Kolvet. So that halo effect of the best friend, you don't question the best friend, but it's behind the scenes. What's really going on with his best friend, right?
Saying a lot of things about this issue. And, on the one hand, I love it because you've got the pro-Israel side claiming him and you've got the anti-Israel side claiming him now, which is a posthumous thing. But I think that's interesting. You got the.
It's not posthumous because this has been going on for a while. We can see the tweets from people connected to Turning Point that this has been going on for a while. We can hear from Charlie Kirk himself that he had questions. This is ridiculous.
Catholics claiming him and the evangelicals claiming him. And
was he becoming Catholic?
No, but
So he didn't answer. So again, from a PR perspective, you get the headline that he addressed these hard questions, but it's friendly fire, so they're not going to push. You never actually got an answer to the infighting. It's a non-answer. That is the most PR answer I've ever heard in my entire life. And then she said she changes the topic, or there was probably a cut there, is more likely what happened. They cut more out. She says, was he becoming Catholic?
Really loved Catholic Mass. He loved the ritual of it. He loved the beauty of old Catholic churches and the stained glass.
And him and Erica would go sometimes.
Yeah, well, Erica's a cradle Catholic, but she ended up kind of like me. I grew up Catholic and First Communion and went to Catholic high school, but then I ended up becoming a Christian in college through a Protestant church, through a non-denominational kind of more experience. It was actually Presbyterian, and then it was kind of non-denominational. And I think Erica kind of follows that same path. She and I share that.
Also, by the way, I just want to draw attention to, she's posted a photo of her and Charlie and the kids in mass before.
Mhm.
And somebody in the comment section said, "Oh, are you guys converting?" And she said, "No, we just like attending sometimes." So she
Yeah.
herself had said no.
Yeah, and I
publicly.
think Charlie, one of the things, Charlie really hated worshiping in like a gym, or
Yeah.
some sort of kind of blank.
So they say he says no, and they bring it back to Erica Kirk as well, apparently saying no. But he does also here give a lot of word salad, PR word salad, to try and explain why people might have that impression. And again, it's PR word salad. I think at the end of the day, what I get from this section personally is, I don't know, man. I'm just the producer. Why did I decide to say I'm the best friend? Because it would have been his decision as the PR person, the crisis comms person, his decision to do that. It's very much like, no, well, like this is why he was always involved in the Catholic Church. And hey, I'm not saying that he was going to convert, but I am saying that is an answer that is kind of like, no, I don't think so. But this is why he loved the church, Catholic Church. So we're seeing people turning on him, Charlie Kirk. We're seeing people in his close circle saying that this had been going on for a long time. But we have to believe as well what Turning Point is handing us in the narrative after Charlie's death. We have to believe in this, what's being billed, the love letter between Charlie and Israel and Netanyahu. But even Alex herself is saying, well, he said there were issues within the movement. And Andrew completely avoids, with some PR jiu-jitsu, completely avoids answering that question. So yes, based on everything I've seen so far, I believe Candace Owens and what Candace Owens is saying, not because I blindly follow someone, but because through critical thinking, I've put the pieces together and it's the only thing that makes sense. It's the only thing that makes sense to me, not because I blindly follow, but because I ask questions and I've been looking at more critically Charlie Kirk's own words, but also Andrew Kirk's body language and how he's handled certain situations when Charlie Kirk speaks on certain issues. I do think, because a crisis comms person sitting with you at an event like that is usually to control the narrative in many respects, right? Kind of like a handler, if you will. And I do believe they were losing control of Charlie, because Charlie's lighting up as he's asking questions that very clearly make Andrew Kolvet very uncomfortable. So I do believe they were losing control of the narrative around Charlie, and he was pushing back. Again, not because anyone's saying that, other than my understanding of PR from over 15 years of experience, my background, education, working in the mental health field within psychology, and then putting the pieces together on my own. I don't believe that letter was written by Charlie Kirk. My opinion. And apparently my bird Annie's opinion. She's saying yes. You agree, right? You agree. Yes, there you go. We got a yes from her. Now in part 2, I want to briefly look at Andrew Kolvet, because again, it irks me how he has been rebranded as Charlie's best friend. If you've been following Turning Point for years, you've probably never heard of Andrew Kolvet being referred to as Charlie's best friend, because I can't find anything that says Charlie ever referred to him as his best friend. The only times I can see any transcripts, video that I can track down where Charlie mentions Andrew Kolvet, he introduces him as the producer. That's how he's introduced. But suddenly, after Charlie Kirk's death, he is everywhere, as a crisis comms guy is going to be. However, every headline is Andrew Kolvet, Charlie Kirk's best friend, conveniently leaving out that he's actually the PR representative and the crisis comms guy. The record doesn't back that he is the best friend, but the record sure as shit backs that he is a crisis comms guy. That's his job. And he's basically a ghost. For someone that was allegedly very close to Charlie, you don't hear Charlie talk about him, but for someone that has worked very high up in crisis communications, there's no really public moments where you can track his life. Everything you hear about Andrew is through Andrew or Andrew written platforms. In fact, his entire past is curated. And I'm not saying that's necessarily bad or a red flag in and of itself. For crisis comms people, PR people operating at that level, typically that's the case. They're very hard to find any information on. So that is very normal, but it just goes to show the level in which he operates. He's meant to be a ghost. He does the crisis comms, he does the PR, he does everything behind the scenes. His background, he is the founder and CEO of the ATK company and worked in crisis communication for the Kairos company as well. But when you look up the ATK company, there's basically nothing there. I'll show you what we can find. We find Muckrack. We have a post up, Nevadan, exiled in California, professional comms, very proud husband and father. So we're seeing a placement here. He's listed as a producer of the Charlie Kirk show in Los Angeles. That's all we have for that page. Let's keep going. We have this post on clay.earth. There he is there. Andrew Kolvet, founder and CEO of the ATK company. We have Andrew Kolvet is a media expert with a knack for communications and publicity. You don't say. With vast professional experience in crisis communications, reputation management, cross-platform branding, brand strategy, and social media retargeting. Social media retargeting, guys. Social media for crisis communications. I wonder if we looked at anything recently that a specialist in social media, in reputation management, might come in handy for. I don't know. Maybe the letter we just read to Netanyahu. Maybe someone with social media retargeting experience and crisis communication and reputation management might have said social media 36 times in a 7-page letter. Just maybe. Andrew is a consummate professional, a media production guru, and a creative director. Andrew's background includes studying at both a Bachelor of Arts in Business Marketing and a BA Honors in Business Administration with a minor in Spanish Language and Cultural Studies. He's previously held such positions as president and founder of ATK Media Inc., vice president of communications at the Kairos Company, vice president of UAMG Lightworkers Media, and MGM, Mark Burnett Company. This isn't just like childhood bestie that the media wants you to believe he is. This isn't childhood bestie. I'm sorry to break the news to anyone. Andrew has also worked as a development producer in Signet Media Group, a producer and account executive at Go West Creative Group, a financial analyst at Washington Mutual, a university intern at Agros International, and lead field marketer at Bolt House Farms. This guy is like the best of the best. And that's what I mean. To find anything on the best of the best is incredibly difficult. I have been spending most of 2025 attempting to get information on Jed Wallace, who is a crisis PR individual as well. Pretty much just as much a ghost. Although I was able to find certain fingerprints that he leaves, which led me to be able to connect dots to different smear campaign websites, allegedly. In summary, Andrew Kolvet is a versatile leader, an expert in media communications, and a highly driven individual. So again, very experienced man. He is not just the bestie. And the interesting thing for me, and again, this is not me making any kind of allegations, a financial analyst at Washington Mutual. Well, didn't we hear through Candace Owens in the internal memo that Candace had concerns about finances? In fact, he had said that he wants to become more efficient and to become more cost effective because there were concerns about where money was going. Hey, I'm not going to pretend that I have any connections at Turning Point, that I know what many roles potentially Andrew Kolvet was involved in. I don't know. I'm not making allegations. I'm just saying it's very interesting. His vast and highly specialized background and a letter that we have come out that is saying social media 39 times, and it's based on crisis communication and reputation management and cross-platform branding. I don't know. You make up your own mind, but that seems suspect to me. And the website that I was able to find for ATK is basically a shell website. There's literally nothing on it. So when we're looking at one, a highly specialized professional. Again, he's not the best friend. He is a highly specialized individual, very talented at what he does, no doubt. Why are we elevating him to the best friend? Well, that's PR 101. You halo the widow and the best friend. You make them the voice of the story, whether Erica wants to or not. You put her at the forefront. The halo effect is also known as the contamination effect. Depends on how you want to look at it. It occurs when a first impression, either positive or negative, influences our perception of a person. Now, would a headline, Andrew Kolvet, Turning Point Crisis Comms Strategist, feel more friendly and warm and get you to listen to him better or worse than Andrew Kolvet, Charlie Kirk's best friend? If we look at that episode I played from Alex Clark's podcast, if she had titled it, Who Charlie Kirk Really Was, Andrew Kolvet, Crisis Comms Strategist at Turning Point, would you be more or less likely to listen to what he has to say? Would you be more or less likely to believe what he has to say? Versus Andrew Kolvet, Charlie Kirk's best friend. Who is Charlie? Let's talk to his best friend. Which one would you believe more? I'm going to assume that if that episode had said Charlie Kirk, Turning Point, Crisis Comms Strategist, you'd have a more critical eye on everything he said. And you'd be asking yourself, what is the actual spin here? What is the actual story they want me to believe? Why do they have the Crisis Comm guy doing this podcast? I'm just making a snap judgment, but I would imagine that's what you would be thinking. Now, these beliefs that are made through the halo effect, of course, are errors in judgment. It's psychology. It's using psychology on you, and it's errors in judgment. Examples of halo effect in marketing, we see it all the time. So say Nike hires Michael Jordan to be the face of them in an ad campaign. Well, you transfer the feeling of success, charisma, popularity to the brand. It's that magic stardust that Michael Jordan is going to bring over. We have how many brands use celebrities? And you automatically like them, you automatically buy from them because that celebrity is the face of it. There's many celebrities that I have that if they're in a TV show or they're selling a product, hey, I know what's happening. I know the psychological marketing that they're using against me, but I'm still going to buy the product. Still going to do it. Another is influencer marketing. Who is using influencer marketing for the halo effect right now? I don't know. Netanyahu. That's a halo effect as well. Brands or government partner with influencers who have loyal, dedicated followers because there's already that know, like, and trust factor with that influencer. So that naturally rubs off on anyone that they promote. Now, to add on top of the halo effect, not just the best friend label, but we have the grieving wife that they keep parading out. She's front and center. She was on the Charlie Kirk show. She was on stage at the memorial, which felt more like a political rally. Now, when you put the two of them at the forefront, the biggest piece of this is it insulates Turning Point from criticism, because that way, anyone who questions the narrative isn't just attacking Turning Point. You're attacking a grieving widow. You're questioning his best friend. It's narrative insulation. And this is something I'm seeing across the board on social media. Anyone that questions Erica, how dare you go after the grieving widow? And I'm not saying that she's not a grieving widow. What I am saying is that she very well could be, and at the same time, the halo effect being used to protect Turning Point. How much money is involved in Turning Point? In fact, I was able to find something that said Charlie Kirk left behind a vast lucrative network of 500,000 donors who gave Turning Point $85 million in revenue. Even if she's not involved in this, you don't think that people that have their fingers in 85 million are against parading her out for the halo effect? Now, another example from there's so many historical examples, but after Princess Diana's death, the halo strategy was deployed around Prince William and Harry. Media narrative was let the boys grieve. Stop asking these questions. Stop prying. Stop accusing the monarchy of things. This insulated the royal family from critique, making critics seem heartless for questioning the monarchy's role in this struggle. Not saying that they were involved, but I'm saying either way, whether you are or are not involved, you use the halo effect and people suddenly don't want to say anything because they're afraid of being torn down for questioning it when the boys are grieving. So this isn't new. It's a classic strategy. Reframe who is close, put them forward, and dare anyone to criticize them. Because again, how dare you go after the grieving wife? How dare you question the grieving wife? How dare you question the best friend? Again, going back to what I said, would you question him a little bit more if the title of that podcast episode was Who is Charlie Kirk with Turning Point's crisis comms strategist? You're probably like, why the hell is the crisis comms guy talking? So strategically, why position him as the best friend? One, trust transfer in a vacuum. When a principal dies, the question becomes who can speak for him, especially when you have such a beloved individual like Charlie Kirk. The question certainly becomes who can speak for him. You need someone. Best friend is the fastest social proof to authorize a new narrator. The fastest social proof. And who's Charlie? Charlie's not going to question it. He's not going to come out and say that's not true. So it's going to go unquestioned, unchallenged, unless someone has proof of otherwise and they come out with it. Number two, narrative control. It elevates Andrew above producer, above the crisis comms strategist position to confidant, best friend, making his statements feel like interpretations of Charlie's wishes, not just PR. Number three, grief halo, which we talked about. The title confers moral cover. Criticism of Andrew's statements can be reframed as callous towards Charlie Kirk. And number four, continuity cue for the movement. And this is the biggest piece that Turning Point's going with right now. It's very clear there is concern over continuity of the movement because they didn't miss a beat. That podcast episode with a group of them, with Erica, I'm sorry, that just gave me bad vibes all around. I thought it was completely tone deaf. There was only one person in it that looked uncomfortable. Everyone else was giddy and happy and laughing. And yes, people grieve differently, but it was just so tone deaf and inappropriate. So continuity cue for the movement, it reassures donors, money, chapters that the voice of the mission persists through someone closest to Charlie. Well, who is put as CEO right away? Erica. So guys, it's continuing by the person that was the closest to Charlie, his wife, and his best friend. So we can see this over and over again because every time you see Charlie Kirk's name mentioned with Andrew Kolvet, it's best friend. Now, if you look into it, did anyone else ever call Andrew Charlie's best friend? Yes, but only after September 10th. Everyone's on board for a certain narrative, it seems. And it's mostly hosts, platforms, promos, and it's the copywriting that they would have been handed from Turning Point or from directly being Andrew Kolvet, who is the PR person. So we're looking at podcast titles, Instagram captions, TV segments. Well, that's all the PR piece that would have been handed over. So it's all being written and curated by Turning Point, by Andrew Kolvet. But I can't find a pre-September 10th, 2025 third-party source that is claiming Andrew is Charlie's best friend. And we saw with our own eyeballs that apparently Andrew had issues with certain things Charlie was saying. Your eyeballs aren't lying to you, my friends. I've also found no verifiable proof that pre-2025, he's gone now, so can't say it now, that Andrew has been referred to by Charlie as his best friend. And evidence or absence of evidence isn't proof it never happened privately. But there's no published clip, article that I can find, that I can surface, that shows Charlie using that phrase about Andrew before Andrew started using that phrase about Andrew. In fact, everything else shows Andrew being listed as a producer or panelist, not best friend. And again, not saying it couldn't have been said privately, but I have questions. And I also have questions about him just being the grieving best friend. Let's go back to that interview with Alex, because there's another piece where he goes into PR mode where the tough questions asked, but he does the most PR move ever.
Why did our team start taking down cameras immediately? Was it just in shock and just thinking like this is what we do and just not thinking it's a crime scene?
I think massive shock. I think there's been some stories about the SD cards or whatever. That was because even in the shock, there was an understanding that the proximity of those cameras were going to be evidence, and they wanted to make sure they didn't get stolen out of the cameras. But B, they didn't want anybody to run in. I mean, there was those videos of the kid running and grabbing the hats.
Yeah.
So there was an understanding. I mean, I talked to the team on that, and they said, because we know people can be evil.
Yeah.
And they grabbed the SD cards so
Yeah,
that
they
nobody
can,
could
Andrew.
get that footage.
So that law enforcement could get it.
Did I answer your Maha question?
So she says, so law enforcement can get it. Let's watch that little piece again because he completely changes the subject. He does not confirm law enforcement got it.
And they grabbed the SD cards so that nobody could get that footage.
So that law enforcement could get it.
Did I answer your Maha question sufficiently? Yeah, okay. He loved Maha.
Well,
He loved Maha moms too. He thought that Maha was the most underappreciated and the most critical of the coalition, of Trump's 2024 coalition. And he wanted to grow it, and he had a real vision for that.
No, my friends, that is not a dirty clip that I did. That is literally what he says. She says, so that the police can get it. There's a hard cut there. So whether he didn't answer, he said, no, do not. And it was edited out. But he just switches back to the previous topic. He doesn't confirm that police got it. That is the most PR answer I've ever heard in my entire life, just displayed there. And again, that episode was all PR for Turning Point and controlling the narrative. It was addressing certain questions without actually addressing them, but being able to say that they address them. So here's what we're left with, my friends. With a letter that reads like a PR proposal, not Charlie Kirk's voice, a prime minister bragging about influencer warfare, which is what that proposal was about, was leveraging social media, a sudden reframing of who Charlie Kirk's inner circle supposedly was, leaving out allegedly his desire to reconnect with Candace Owens, leaving out his concerns that he had, particularly in the conversations he's had with Megyn Kelly. We also have a smear campaign, and I'm going to do a separate video on that, a smear campaign that's being leveled against Candace, Tucker, and Megyn. The red flags aren't subtle. They're screaming. And if you care about truth, about media integrity and independent voices, that is exactly why you need to dig deeper and not take the narrative that's being fed to you. Because the official narrative, it's polished, it's scripted, it's highly convenient, isn't it? And it's designed to silence your questions through the halo effect. That's all I have for you in this video. Please leave a comment. Let me know what you think. This channel is being highly silenced. If you enjoy this video, please share with someone else. Share the link, post it to your friends, share it with your communities. Hopefully we'll get answers on what's actually going on. And with that, I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys. What I found, nobody wants to hear.